Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
All right, everybody, welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to have an awesome show tonight. We have Ross Allison and June Nixon joining us tonight. Paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be talking about the other side of the realm, right? What entities exist beyond the veil, and also the paranormal realm. We're going to be doing that for hours 1 and 2, and then we'll have Steve Stockton and Drew Banky with the After Hour wrap up in hour number 3, action-packed show. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere tonight. It is definitely going down. Let's go ahead and see who came in first this evening. We have Race Fan coming in with the gold. Race Fan gets the gold. Kitty Caddywhack with the silver, and Stargazer with the bronze. Roger Murray dropping some knowledge. November 5th, 1975, alien abduction. Travis Walton inspired the movie Fire in the Sky. November 7th, 1989, first reports of the Belgium Triangle UFO police. Happy. Also, U.S. Election Day is coming up. Thanks, Roger Murray, for dropping that on us. We also got the male WD-40 lubing us up, getting us ready to get into the show. We got Area 51 saying, first, I finally got the first comment. Almost, but you're pretty early, and we appreciate you showing up. Who else do we have here? Just moving down the list here. Who else do we got coming in? Brown Dwarf. Brown Dwarf is here. I do see you, Brown Dwarf. Thanks for coming on in tonight. We appreciate you showing up. Let's see. Ann Joanne. I do see Ann Joanne. Thank you for coming in, Ann Joanne. Also, Stargazer. Appreciate you showing up. T-Bone is here. Thanks for coming, T-Bone. Aloha Dave is here. Miss Catherine Jones, I see you. Woo I Am, thanks for coming in. Let's see. I think we're Robert Redmond Clips channel. Thanks for showing up tonight. Alien Believers, thanks for coming in. Can't wait for the love. We appreciate you showing up. We're going to go ahead and get ready to get this thing started. Joey Glowy, thanks for coming on in. We appreciate you. Matt Fade, I see you out there. We're going to go ahead and get the podcast side of this thing started. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight we have Ross Allison and June Nixon, paranormal investigators. We're going to be getting into the paranormal realm, what entities exist beyond the veil. There's so many questions. It should be an awesome show, hours 1 and 2. Then we got Steve Stockton and Drew Banky in hour 3 with the After Hours wrap up. We're getting ready to start this radio thing in about 10 seconds. Guys, get ready. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G, and tonight we'll be broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us, X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website, it's spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire. Get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Mr. Bumblefoot, and oh, so much more. We're going to have an awesome show tonight. We have Ross Allison and June Nixon, paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, researchers for hours 1 and 2. And we'll go ahead and get into some Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries and Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up in hour number 3. As we go ahead and get ready to jump into the show tonight, we're going to hop right on in and we're going to bring our guests in for the night. We have Ross Allison and June Nixon. Hi, how are you guys?
Hi.
Doing good.
All right. You were right past spooky season. We just missed it by a few days here, but I was like, we can still have a great conversation because paranormal is actually year round. We got
we celebrate it year round. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly.
So here's what I like to do, especially I've talked to you, Ross. We interviewed, it was almost a year ago. It's crazy. It was that long ago. And June, you for the first time here. So I would love to hear how each one of you got into the paranormal. Did you have any experiences early on, and kind of we'll go from there.
Okay.
Well, for me, I always blame my mother. My mother loves ghost stories. So I grew up listening to ghost stories most of my life, very fascinated with them. Just curious if people really had paranormal experiences that I'd heard in these stories. So for me, it was kind of interesting when I got involved in the field. Most people had, their ghost stories, their experiences, and I was just the odd man out because I didn't.
Excellent. Excellent. How about you, June?
Yeah, that is something. Well, I had actually lost a lot of people and pets in my life at a very young age. And I thought, well, actually there can't be any ghosts because no one's come to visit me. No one's come to, contact me. So I think all these ghost shows and I think all these people, with experiences are, kind of full of crap. So I kind of got into it for that reason because I wanted to prove that it was, horse hockey, I guess, basically. And so I got into it that way and I joined a group. I took all these classes and let's just say I have a lot more unanswered questions than I do answered questions. And I think that's the only way that you can make a skeptic believe is they have to have their own experiences. So that's kind of what happened to me. So
yeah, and that's great that you point that out. And actually it's awesome as well, kind of starting it off to have that whole perspective of coming from a skeptical place initially, because some people are just born believers and you never really get to see that side of a person that once had an opposing view to what it is they're now involved in. So that's excellent. As well as I used to feel that way too. and it was like for me, it almost feels like yesterday, which it really wasn't that long ago. It's probably like I'd say 8 years ago for Paranormal, where I just felt like these shows they can't be true. Like the things I'm seeing here, I just no, it's not true. It can't be true. But then I actually recently had some experiences of my own that kind of brought it home for me. So it's kind of strange to come see it from the skeptical side and then find out that there really is something to this here. So,
Oh yeah.
starting out, do you guys investigate together or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We've been investigating together for what, over 10 years now, June, right?
Oh, yeah.
Over
Since
12?
2012. Yeah. Since
Yeah.
2012. Yeah. So that's when I joined a
Wow.
ghost.
Well,
But I've
Oh
been
my
doing this
God.
since 2005. But I didn't get actually to meet Ross until about 2012. And all these weird circumstances kind of lined up. And yeah. It was like, oh,
Yeah. And
let's hear what got you
so,
guys
and I've
started. Let's hear what got you guys started together. As far as like, what was your first experience together that was like, whoa?
you can tell that one, Ross.
well, you invited me. It was
Mhm.
a situation where one of her good friends and June, Todd and June were actually a part of a group, and Todd invited me to participate in an investigation that he was hosting. So I was
Mhm.
a guest on their investigation, and unfortunately, Todd was one of those people that just could not say no to people. And so poor June would have to host like 50, 60 plus people on an investigation. And
Mhm.
and she was frustrated, and I could see it. And she's like kept coming up to me. She's like, because she knew I had strict protocols when it came to investigating the
Mhm.
paranormal. I was like, too many cooks in the kitchen, come on. So I always investigate with a very small group, and she wanted me to try and coax Todd into this practice, because unfortunately, as she had learned, and hopefully Todd, unfortunately, he has passed, so he's no longer with us. But we were trying to show them the advantage of having far less people on an
Yeah.
investigation and having a controlled environment and being able to be able to collect real evidence
Right.
without people contaminating it. And so that
Mhm.
was kind of our introduction to each other, besides being, I guess our first one was actually being on their show. So but our first
Yeah.
investigation was helping out.
We used to have our own little kind of podcast radio show, Todd and I, and he wanted Ross to come on the show, and I was like, "Oh, do we really want someone local that's on our show? Since we had been getting some bigger names, on our show." And I was like, "Do we really want someone local on our show?" And Todd was like, "Yes, June, he's really good. He knows what he's talking about, and you're really gonna like him." And I was like, "Okay, we'll have him on."
So what did you guys end up experiencing like on your first investigation? Like just one that you'll always remember together.
Oh wow.
How we've done so many.
We've had so many. We've had so many weird experiences. What is it?
Because we also travel all over the world doing this. So
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
to say one that really sticks out for me back in our early years was we were investigating an abandoned restaurant. It had suffered a major fire, and
Oh,
it sat
yes.
abandoned for over
Yeah.
10 years.
Mhm.
Homestead in West Seattle.
The old
And
homestead.
so, yeah, the old Homestead restaurant. It had great stories. In fact, there's actually a video clip that has been featured on Paranormal Caught on Camera on the Travel Channel that was
Mm.
captured there. And that actually was just both of us up there as well. But one of the earlier investigations that we did there, I do remember we were all downstairs. We were packing up, getting ready to leave for the night. And all of a sudden, we hear somebody walking around upstairs in heavy boots.
Yeah.
And,
Really
and, and
loud footsteps. Yeah.
yeah, and we froze. I told, we're trying to capture this. Unfortunately, we had already pulled all of our equipment upstairs because, like I said, we were packing to leave. So there was no recorders or videos going on up there. So I just remember that, me and June right behind me trying to sneak upstairs to see if we could figure out what was causing this noise. And as soon as we got upstairs, it completely stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But you could hear these heavy footsteps.
Yeah, it was like almost a full minute of heavy footsteps. And we thought, did, a homeless person sneak upstairs? Surely not. We've been there for 5 or 6 hours, surely we would have seen somebody, go upstairs. And yeah,
And the only way upstairs is to go through the house, and we're downstairs. So, and finally when it stopped, nobody up there.
And we looked at each other like, wow.
Yeah. when you have one of those moments, and I got to tell you, I know exactly what you're talking about because I had that here right in the studio I'm in right now, right above my head as I sit here now, right above my head for like maybe a week or so.
Wow.
Footsteps, clear as day, heavy footsteps walking across the roof. And we don't have an attic up here, it's just a small crawl space. And it was like 2 a.m. And I'm like, there's no way in the world that someone, but the logical thought process, what you should go down is it someone living, even if it doesn't make sense, right? It's like, okay, somebody has to be in this crawl space, or someone has to literally be on my roof at 2 a.m.
Wow.
Going through that just to get to the conclusion that, yeah, no one's up there. And so then what was that, right? And that's kind of where I'm at. That's where my investigation ends. See, where do you guys go from there? So you get the footsteps, so that lets you know that something's there. So what is your first step then after that? What do you do?
Well, we were, as it was happening, of course, we're trying to capture it too, because all of our equipment's downstairs now. We were wrapping up. So we're trying, to get our recorders up there so that we can at least capture the sound so we can prove that we're hearing this. And there's a good 8 of us downstairs, all witnessing this. So June's right behind me. We're slowly sneaking upstairs. I got recorder in my hand, just trying to capture this. And then as soon as it stopped, of course, we're up there wandering around trying to figure out what could have caused this.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to do the debunking process, and it's just nothing we could do could actually debunk what we experienced. It was clearly somebody walking around up there. And again, there's no way to sneak up there unless you're going to climb up the side of the house and then into one of the windows. That's the only way you can get up there.
Of course, one of my friends was like, oh, it was probably just like a possum got in there. I said, well, unless that possum was wearing really heavy boots or really strong high heels, really heavy high heels. Yeah, no, that was not an animal. We heard it. It was somebody walking on 2 feet very loudly, and there was no getting around that.
So when something's there at that point. So okay, you break out the recorder. Okay, it doesn't catch the sound. So what do you pull out next? Like what is your next go-to? Because something's there now. So how do you go about trying to detect it further?
Well, unfortunately, it does become a missed opportunity because, like I said, we were wrapping up. Everything was mostly packed up. So all I had was, because our last thing that we walk out the door with is our recorders going. Just in case something, happens as we're walking out the door, we at least hopefully get what we're hoping is EVPs, like goodbye or something like that, and an EVP, which has been recorded in the past. So that is our strict rule. So as we get up to the top of the floor, by this time, once we get up there, it completely stops. So there's nothing to go by once you get up to the top of the floor and you have that sound stop. So unfortunately, we weren't able to capture the best quality of it. You walk around, you try to figure out, what could have caused it and what could have made the noise. Is there anything that looks like it's disturbed? You're checking the all the spaces where somebody could have hidden If somebody did sneak up there, you're checking, behind the doors, closets, everywhere, crawl spaces, just to see if somebody does, live up there, because it is abandoned. And the scariest thing is not the dead, it's the living.
Yeah, it's the living.
So, yeah. You watch all these videos of people living in somebody's, crawl space, and then you find out, in the middle of the night, they're sneaking down in your kitchen and eating your food. So you have to look into all those aspects, and being it's an abandoned place, we're looking, every space that you can where somebody could be hiding. Nobody.
Yeah.
You're taking readings, trying to see if there might still be something lingering. You continue, you restart the investigation after something like that, and you're probably, spending another hour there after that experience, hoping to, recapture it. And I think that's the best you can do. Unfortunately, like I said, it does become a missed opportunity, because by the time we got down, got upstairs with some equipment, it had stopped.
Yeah, and that's validating for me, because you said someone may in the crawl space coming down, going into your kitchen during the night or something, and I'm thinking the same thing, and so it just is validating, because I went through that same thought process as just to get it exit out, because I knew it was unlikely, but something you got to check, right?
You never know,
Exactly.
You see those videos on YouTube and stuff like that, where somebody suspects, like, why is my food going away, and disappearing all the time? And so they set up a camera in the middle of the night, and you see somebody crawling out of their ceiling, into their, pantry. And that's terrifying.
Yeah,
because you're asleep, in the other room.
Now you laid this out. You said, so there was this huge group of researchers, and it's not how you like to do your investigations or research. So is there, what would you say is something that you wish would change within the paranormal research field? Just your opinion on other researchers and things you would like to see done differently.
That's a whole other show, believe me. Because we could talk about, the problems with some of the shows, and problems with some of the equipment that most ghost hunters are dependent on. It's there's a lot that could be fixed. You have to understand that when I started my group in 2000, we were 1 out of 100 groups nationally. Now, because of the popularity of ghost hunting, each state can easily have 100 groups or more. And so it has become very competitive, but it also has opened a lot of doors to the fact that it's more accepted. If I had told people back in 2000 or even earlier than that, because I been doing this for over 30 years now. And I was starting my ghost hunting back in California when I was living in California. And back in those days, you didn't tell people you were a ghost hunter, because most people would avoid you at the parties. You'd be partying alone in a room.
True.
It was a thing that was just kind of like, you're weird. Why are you doing that? But now, it's very popular, and now you can tell people, you're a ghost hunter, and people just think you're a rock star. So it's completely changed for that aspect. But then, of course, as I was talking, about June's experience, when you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it's the same thing when you have far too many groups. The biggest problem that we have in the paranormal field is there is no strict protocols. Each group is as diverse as the people leading the group. So everybody's got their own way of ghost hunting and their own belief system, and, what they believe to be paranormal and what's not paranormal. And there is not really that much science in the field. So that's another thing that really hurts us is, we want to make all these claims that, this is proof to the paranormal, but there's really not enough to back it up. Just because you get an interesting EMF reading on your EMF detectors does not make that a ghost. And so we struggle with the credibility that is lacking in this field. Because again, without some strict protocols that we all follow, Most people are getting their education just by watching the television shows or YouTube channels. And so since they've seen every episode of Ghost Hunters, they're now, professional ghost hunters and can go out and charge, customers, $100 or more to have an investigation. And that also hurts us as well. So it's tough. It really is. Like I said, we could talk about this all night if you wanted to. But
it's just awesome. But I wanted to see like what would with that mindset, because that's if you're especially it's understandable how all these groups, if there are no rules, can essentially have their own way of going about doing this.
Exactly.
So what method do you use? Like what, and if you could design a playbook or a rule book on how to approach paranormal investigating, what are some of the things you think are key or some things that should be paid attention to?
Well, one thing that people are misled, especially through media, is that they believe that there are devices that definitely tell you have ghosts in your home. To develop a tool like that, we have to know what a ghost is made of. We don't know this yet. We're still at the very beginning of the race. So I've always told people that, ignore a system that says, oh, this is a ghost meter, and it's going to tell you, yes, you have a ghost in your home. There's no such thing. The best we can do as paranormal investigators is adapt devices that help us to understand the environment, that give us the readings of the environment and let us know if there's changes in the environment that we cannot explain. Why is there this reading when this reading shouldn't be there?
Yeah.
And so that is the best we can do. I know there's a lot of devices out there that many ghost hunters turn to because they love this instant gratification. They want, they don't want to put forth the time and energy into reviewing videos and reviewing audio. Most ghost hunters today, and because of the television shows, they want these devices that give them that instant reading, that instant reply, and it's not like that. A lot of this, one of my favorite things when investigating the paranormal is EVP, real EVP, the recording with your audio, going back and listening and hearing a response. But most people don't want to do that. So it's one of those things that I really feel that if we are going to better ourselves as investigators, we have to develop stricter protocols, follow certain rules like 3 hits of evidence. So basically what that means is if you are experiencing something that you believe to be paranormal, let's say it was a strange noise. Oh, that's great. We heard footsteps upstairs. Okay, so we got that on audio recording. Well, what else was going on at that same time? Did we get any interesting EMF readings at that time? Did any other devices go off at that time? If we can match up at least 3 hits to one experience, that makes that experience more valid. It gives us, more data to turn to help us fine tune our skills. What is it that we're really experiencing? Because you can't just use an EMF detector and say this is what a ghost is made of, because it's more than that.
And we'll hold right there. That's awesome stuff, Ross. As we go ahead and get ready to jump into the first break of the night already, right here at the Spaced Out Radio After Hours Radio Show. We'll be back with Ross Allison and June Nixon talking the paranormal realm and what entities exist beyond the veil. More of this to come. Don't go anywhere. Stay right there. All right, we are clear. Great stuff. Great stuff. We got 5 minutes. If you guys need to do anything, you got 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. And
Pee quickly, June. Pee quickly.
I'm good. I'm good.
Well,
All
I
right, let's
am.
check.
Great guest tonight. Awesome stuff. Appreciate you coming in. T-Bone, Area 51, Country Carpenter. Thanks for coming in. Um, let's see who else. Carl Bittner. Thanks for coming in. Kira, thanks for showing up tonight. We appreciate you coming in. Mark Eddy as well. Thanks for coming in tonight. Shelly Montgomery, thanks for coming on in. Let's see, who else do we have? Jeff Garvey. Jeff Garvey, thanks for coming on in tonight. And Alien Believers, thanks for coming in. Erico Dion Viglione, thanks for coming on in. Too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the broth. I'm hungry now. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. FAP, appreciate you showing on up. J Truth Seeker, thanks for coming in. Halloween was fun, but I'm also glad it's over with. I kind of like the season. I kind of like the Halloween season.
Me too.
Blue Cruise, thanks for coming in. Hello, Kira. Good to see you. Also glad to be here. We appreciate you showing up. And we might be current. Let me see. Yep, looking good. Looking good. So, what did you guys do for Halloween? Did you have anything going on this Halloween?
I was on my lecture tour, so I was lecturing at a college. So
Okay.
every year I'm out lecturing at colleges and universities. So I haven't experienced Halloween in probably over 20 years.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's good. That's good stuff out there. What do you lecture on?
Ghosts.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at
Yeah.
least you're doing something, Halloween related. We'll call it, because spirits and things of that nature. So that's actually pretty cool. How about you, June?
This year Ross couldn't do one of the lectures, so I did it in Missouri, and I was flying back on Halloween. So
Okay.
Yeah, but you got back in time to give out some candy,
yes, I did. I got
harass
back,
some children.
Yeah.
let my little dog try to attack some children, so it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been hosting here for the last two Halloween. So usually what I would do is get out there and do something and terrify kids. That's what Halloween is all about.
Yeah.
Easy.
All about terrifying children. So I kind of missed that, but I'm gonna make sure I'm out to do that next year.
I miss dressing up. I miss doing the costumes and stuff like that. That's one thing I miss, because I don't get to do that because I'm traveling with just the lightest amount of luggage as I'm flying from state to state. So I don't even get to pack like a costume if I wanted to wear something on Halloween.
Yeah, yeah. Usually I'll change my costume up every year, but last year and then this year, because I haven't had a chance to do that, I just went with the same costume, which is Jigsaw from Saw's, like one of my favorite franchises. So I did this little skit for the show, and I was like, that's me celebrating Halloween. So there you go.
I know, and I don't even get to wear my June mask for Halloween.
Yeah. I really, one year, and maybe it'll be next year, I really wanted to go and get those the Hollywood quality costumes, the movie ready costumes.
Oh yeah.
I really want to spend some money and do that one year. Go all the way in.
Do you know what?
I think I
You
was
want to know
gonna
which
say
one?
I've rented a costume once. It was a pirate costume, which was really cool. Much better quality than the cheap ones that you buy, like even at Spirit. It was just much nicer quality mask and stuff and all that.
I want to go full transformation, full Hollywood style makeup in movie ready.
Wow.
That's what I want to at least do it one time. So
No, it'd be cool. Definitely.
yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna do it. It's on my list. Because we got about 30 seconds to go before we're back from radio. Huh. Okay, 10 seconds. All right, guys, we're coming back. Let's get ready to go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're coming back into the conversation with Ross Allison and June Nixon, paranormal researchers, paranormal investigators, as we jump down the rabbit hole of the paranormal and the veil. What entities exist beyond the veil? We'll be talking about that and more. Don't go anywhere as we jump right back into the conversation. So let's start out here, Ross, because I know last time we talked. We talked about death museums.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind going and talking about that again, kind of refreshing the audience's mind on that.
Well, unfortunately, we did lose our death museum. We had the first death museum in the Northwest. It consisted of haunted objects, a lot of death memorabilia, from mourning dresses, mourning jewelry, funeral stuff, embalming, and then just interesting customs when it came to death. So very well diverse in the subject matter, but we lost the museum just because we couldn't compete with a lot of the what they call gypsy tours. That was just tours popping up, run out of different states. People that weren't paying taxes, city taxes, state taxes, employee taxes. They were just having somebody in Seattle area, hey, do a tour for us and we'll pay you. And so that's become the norm now. And it's those practices unfortunately affect a lot of the mom and pop shops. And so we ended up couldn't sustain the rent, unfortunately. Yeah. So I have all this memorabilia and stuff all packed away in storage. But it's kind of heartbreaking, but we still have the tours going. We just basically have to start them from the street rather than an office. But let's. What would you like to know about death memorabilia?
Well, you answered one of those questions. Is that I wanted to know if you still had the death memorabilia. So you do.
I do. It's in storage. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it. I've been talking to. I talked to like a funeral home to see if they may have space, but they didn't, to actually do a death museum. So I'm trying to think about what I want to do next. Maybe things will get better. Maybe they'll start to come down on these illegal tours, and and start to help out a lot of the small businesses.
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, I totally understand that. Sorry to hear that too, because it sounded like a real cool place. But as long as you have the memorabilia, that's really the heart of what it is. Right. What are some of the things that you have in that collection?
Oh gosh, now June has some of it in her place. She's been storing it because we are doing what we're calling like a little traveling museum. So a lot of times when we do conferences, we'll set up a table and show off a lot of the pieces that we have. So June has been hoarding a lot of the haunted objects. One of the things that we
closet.
in your haunted closet, is that what it is?
Of course, talk about the most famous one
is Mr. Creepy. So Mr. Creepy is a ventriloquist doll, and he actually is he was made in the 1960s by a retired ventriloquist artist who actually went back to the vaudeville days in the Northwest. And in his retirement years, he made Mr. Creepy, and he made a female counterpart. And why I'll get into why he got called Mr. Creepy, but otherwise I'm assuming that wasn't his original name. But this ventriloquist doll was made in the guy's likeness, and then the female counterpart was made in his wife's likeness. Now, what made them a little odd was they actually used their real hair on the dolls. So after their passing, the dolls were sold as a pair at an estate sale. and a woman who actually deals with antiques, she bought them and she put them on display on a shelf behind her register. And they sat there for years until, unfortunately, they had sold the building that her shop was in. And so she had to pack and move to another location. So she packed up the dolls separately and she put them in a storage unit. And so when she found her new location, she ended up pulling pieces to stock her store. Well, she found him, but she didn't find the female counterpart. So she went ahead and put him on display in a glass case behind the register. And that's when things got interesting for her. She said right away she started having these weird feelings, like there was somebody constantly watching her, breathing down the back of her neck. She would swear at times that his eyes would move and his head would turn, and he kept moving. One day she even came in and found the glass case wide open. So after she had these experiences, and she's the one that named him Mr. Creepy after all this, she moved him to the back of the store and put him on a bottom shelf so she didn't have to see him every day. So when I went into her store, I was looking for a lot of pieces that I could add to my death museum. So I was looking for a lot of, funeral memorabilia and anything else tied to that. And I tend to ask a lot of these, antique dealers if they have anything that's odd. Because if you ever go to antique shopping, you'll find some pretty odd pieces that they get into their collections. And she immediately told me his story. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. I would love to have this guy in my museum. She was so happy to get rid of him that she sold me him for $1.
Wow.
Yeah. So I brought him into our museum. And I had him for a very short time before, we started experiencing weird stuff as well. I had actually, we had witnessed his eyes would move to the left or to the right, and they would lock there. Now, what's odd about that is his eyes are actually spring loaded. So you got to remember, he's in a glass case. So no one has access to touching him. It's a locked glass case. So when you come in and you find his eyes locked to the left or locked to the right, I would try to investigate and find out what's happening here. Is there a mechanism that's being, jammed or something like that? Because the only way to move his eyes left or right is to move the lever left or right. But once you let go of that lever, it springs right back to the center. You have to be holding on to the lever for his eyes to be, stay left or right.
Wow.
So we were experiencing things like that. And I know June's had some experiences with him as well.
Yeah. Well, the very first time was, I remember the night before, his head was turned at a certain angle, and we had gone home, and the next morning I had to be there kind of earlier in the morning. I think we had some kind of event going on, and I just happened to look over at the case where he was stored in, and all of a sudden I realized that he was staring right at me, and he should have been staring the other direction. And I think I might have just screamed. It was just, it was really startling. I wasn't scared. It was very startling. And I remember Mark running out like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I was like, oh, his head moved. And there was nobody in there at all. I mean, we locked the door as we left. And that next morning we unlocked it and nobody could get in, there to move it.
Yeah.
That was the first time. And we just had some weird things happen. Yeah, just a lot of different.
Even during, because we had to shut down during COVID because Seattle didn't allow any tours, public events. So we had to shut down, and June actually had Mr. Creepy in her possession. He actually stayed in her room, and she was having weird experiences.
Yeah, it's really strange. We were on some sort of show or a radio show, and we were talking about him, and all of a sudden it's like my lights all went off, and it's like, it was just really bizarre because all of a sudden he had, I wouldn't say he had unplugged the light, but the light was all of a sudden unplugged. And it was just some weird other things, and like bad connections, and I don't even know. I can't remember everything else, but it was just really weird things that happened.
Yeah, sounds pretty weird. Mr. Creepy is a great name. And it's, yeah, so the human hair part bothers me because that's almost like a voodoo doll. It's like borderline voodoo doll stuff right there. And do you think maybe it started behaving this way because it lost its wife, his mate?
Well,
So
and that's a great question because I started to do research. I wanted to find out, what's going on and why this doll is so active. Well, like as I said, the previous owner, when she had bought them, she kept them together, so that they were sold together. That was the rule. And when she packed them away, separately because she didn't want them to get ruined or rubbing up against each other and getting scratched or anything. So um, she was not able to find the female counterpart. And I think that is what caused a lot of the phenomena we experience today. Is I do believe he is looking for the female counterpart because they hadn't been separated since the day they were created. So I think there might be some sort of haunting as to the creator of the dolls and his wife. Like these were perfect vessels for them in the afterlife.
Mhm,
And
mm.
so
to
Wow.
talk about it, and I can run and go get him if you'd like to.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, she
I'll be right back.
for sure.
so the thing is I would love to bring those two souls together. I think that's all it is he's not trying to be creepy. He's just looking around like, where is she? So I've returned to the antique shop many times, just trying to see if she had found her at all. And and she says no, she's still in the storage unit. Well, I even offered. I said I can have me and my team come out and we will help you go through the storage unit. We'll even help you organize it for free, no charge whatsoever. We'll help you organize it, do whatever you need to do. Maybe we might find some other things you were looking for. And she just refused. She was just like, she just does not want anybody going through her stuff. And come to find out is I have discovered that she's a bit of a hoarder. So it's not just one storage unit. She's got like a bunch of storage units that are jam packed. So she doesn't even know which one it's in.
What in the world
There-
is that?
There he is.
I'm gonna bring up full screen because that is a creepy doll. I have a problem with dolls in general, but good lord, look at this thing. Oh no, that's human hair too. Oh my god.
Yep.
And
It's
the
all
must.
human hair.
I don't know what kind of hair he used on that, but
And how does his? Are you able to move his eyes?
one second.
Yeah.
Back.
Oh no.
So there's his eyes. So if she flicks the trigger, you can see that they're spring loaded.
And it doesn't stick, but you have to,
What?
But yeah, if you flick the trigger, June, show them that they're spring loaded, so you can see the spring out. So there.
Oh
So
yeah.
see.
So it pops back. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be holding the trigger left or right to get his eyes to stay in that position. Otherwise, they automatically go right back to the center.
Can you?
But you
can
will
you move his
experience
mouth?
it.
Let's see. Where's
It's
this
a little gun
You get
trigger.
the whole creepy.
Here, sorry. I keep losing my
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That is insanely creepy.
I guess June is not talented in ventriloquism.
Yeah.
Why is his mouth just staying open like that? That definitely makes it a little scarier. There it is.
Yes. Oh my god. And you have that in your room. He
well,
stays in your room.
he's in the living room now in the case. I don't want anything to happen to him.
Whoa.
Yeah, after her experiences with him, she stopped actually sleeping with him in her room. So
And, and I'm just so I'm just in awe by this. I just have to say this for the radio audience. What she has here is a really creepy ventriloquist doll that is insanely creepy. Has a mustache, bushy eyebrows, big bubbly weird eyes, and he looks, oh my god, that this is creepier than the doll they show in Annabelle. That is for me crazy because I'm really afraid, not, well, not really afraid, but I really don't, deal with dolls like that for this reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let
I
me
thought
see here. I don't know. I don't know what you do with that. I don't know. I couldn't have it in my house. So what do you do with that? Like, what do you? Okay, this creepy thing right here is giving you weird experiences, paranormal experiences. Like, how do you reconcile that? What do you like? He would be tucked away somewhere. The moment something happened, he would be in a storage somewhere, or he wouldn't be with me. I don't. How do you do that as a paranormal? I guess it's normal then. Maybe it's a paranormal investigator.
I'll set him behind me and
Well,
see what
for me, it's more of curiosity to have a object that does carry this energy, and it seems, and it's an intelligent energy too, because it's reacting to the environment. It's looking at people when they walk into the room. So for me, it's obviously a great tool to help us to have a better understanding to the other side. So we have tried to document as much of the phenomena that we've experienced with him. Now, unfortunately, June's got to live with him. He's not just in a shop where you only have to deal with him when you're at the shop. He's now with her 24/7. So, but
sometimes I do keep
go-
a camera on him, just to kind of see if something does happen. But he's been very, very quiet for a while, so I don't know if he's just dormant or.
That that's a great idea to keep a camera on them. That is an excellent idea. I would at least have to do that for sure. That is insanely terrifying. That doll. And someone in the audience wanted you to show other doll, but you don't have the other doll. She only has the
We
Mr.
would.
yeah, we
Creep.
have not been able to find the female counterpart. I keep searching. I keep visiting the antique dealer to see if she might have found her. I have to give her a card every time I go in. I'm sure she has a huge stack of my cards now because I just want to make sure she doesn't lose it, knows how to get a hold of me if she ever finds her. But I think that's what the story is. It's just these two souls have been separated and they're just looking for each other. So I
Wow.
hope we can, bring a closure to that story.
Yeah, yeah. I hope so too because yes, I don't know. I'm still in shock at just I didn't anticipate that. That is movie ready, horror movie ready doll right there. That he's ready to take the job for sure.
Yes.
With that being said, what else do you have in your collection that I don't know how you can top that, but what else do you have in your collection?
I don't know. What's one of your favorites, June?
We have. Let me think. There's just so many different ones that have these incredible stories.
Do you
We have
have the stuff? Go ahead. Sorry.
the skeleton hand that belonged to the miner. That was
Oh, the
pretty cool.
skeleton hand. Yes.
An
Um.
actual human skeleton hand?
Yep. Yep. It's
My
a
God.
real human skeleton hand. He was a miner killed in an explosion in the mine, and all they found was his hand. It was identified by his wedding ring, and ever since the family held on to his hand because they were hoping more pieces would, be discovered as they, tried to reopen the mine. And they never did find any more pieces or any pieces that could be identified back in those days as belonging to him. So the family just held onto the hand, and they felt that he was still attached to this hand because they would have experiences with his hand around. So that was definitely an interesting story. One of my favorite pieces is the lamb, the stuffed lamb. Do you have that, June? Is that in our collection, our travel collection?
It
The
might be. It
lamb?
might
But that's
come back.
actually, but that actually is one of my favorite pieces. It was just recently donated to the museum before we had closed. It's actually featured in my book, Haunted Toys, part of the Haunted series that me and David Weatherly had written. And this was a stuffed lamb that belonged to a little girl of 8 years old. And it was one of her toys that had to be with her 24/7. She was one of those kids that was just obsessed with this toy. I mean, she even bathed with this toy. And one day they were crossing the road when she was struck by a car. And her and the lamb went separate ways. And unfortunately, she later died in the hospital. And so the mother, wanting her daughter to be buried with her treasured toy, went back to the scene of the crime and walked up and down the road trying to find that lamb because she wanted her daughter to have her toy. And she couldn't find it anywhere. So she went on with the funeral. And the day she got home from the funeral, to her surprise, on the front porch was that lamb. Now, she doesn't know how it got there. She says no one left a note. No one reached out to her to say, oh, I found the lamb. I left it on your porch. Nothing. No one made any claims to it. But she was still excited, to have this toy that her daughter cherished. So she brought it into the house and she put it on her daughter's bed. She said the very next day when she got up, the lamb was sitting in front of the television where her daughter would always sit to watch her favorite shows. And almost on a daily basis, she would wake up and find this lamb in different places in the house. It would sit at her place at the table where she always ate her meals. It would sit in her favorite places where she would, play with her toys. So realizing that this was her daughter, and in fact, this is a woman who never, believed in ghosts or never even gave ghosts a thought. She didn't even know what to do or how to respond to any of this. She reached out to a local ghost hunter, and they decided to try for what they call EVP. Now, if you're not familiar with EVP, these are the voices that appear on our recorders that are not supposed to be there, and they're only heard in playback. So they set the lamb on a table. They set the recorder on the table next to it, and they start asking questions. Well, after they finished the EVP session, they played back the recording. And to their surprise, they claimed that they captured the little girl crying. Well, her mother, after having this experience and hearing her daughter cry for the first time after her death, she couldn't sleep that night. She just tossed and turned. So she got up in the middle of the night and she went into her daughter's room and she laid on her daughter's bed.
Okay, and Ross, we got a minute left, just so you know, to wrap it up.
Okay.
We got a minute left.
So she basically wakes up to a sound. She sees her daughter standing in the doorway, and she was like, oh my God. And she just froze until her daughter just faded away in front of her eyes. And she never had an experience ever since then. The lamb never moved, or she never saw her daughter again. She believes that why she was crying is because she was saying goodbye.
Oh, so sad.
That is sad. That is sad. Put it in items like that. And I want to, and I will answer this after the break, but it would think maybe you could kind of hone in your abilities by using these haunted items that you have. But what we'll do is go ahead and take a break first and then jump back into that conversation as we come right back right after this break. An hour gone already right here, Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we are off, and we're going on a 5-minute off-camera break, so I'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. right, everyone. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G, as we're joined back with our guests, Ross Allison and June Nixon, showing us some really creepy stuff here this evening. Did not expect the doll. As we get ready to come back from radio break here in about 20 seconds. So, guys, any questions that you may have, definitely get those in the chat, and we'll ask those at the end of the hour. So we got about 10 seconds left. And here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2. Already hour number 2. With me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Joined back with our guests, Ross Allison and June Nixon, paranormal investigators, researchers, and they have a pretty cool collection of creepy things. Guys, if you're out there in social media land, don't forget to follow us at Spaced Out Radio, at Spaced Out Radio Show. We would appreciate that follow as we get back into the conversation here. So we were kind of ending off there, and I guess this goes into a question that I actually have that you kind of answered there, which is, does it appear that ghosts can attach themselves to material items? And it sounds like yes. So
Yes.
with that being said, I would think then it would give you, having a collection of haunted items would give you a leg up on other investigators, because you have a test source of material objects that you could test. You could test investigation techniques on, I would think, right? Is that
Well,
something
you can. It is nice to have objects that you know are indeed haunted to do certain experiments with, but you have to understand it's just the same as ghost hunting. All this is all about being at the right place at the right time. You can't, ask Mr. Creepy to please turn your head right now and he'll do it.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. I wish it did. I wish we had more direct responses and interaction with the other side. But you can go on investigations and sit there in what is to be the most haunted location in the world and not have any paranormal experiences while you're there. It's the same thing with a lot of these haunted objects. You could sit around for hours waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't always happen. So again, it's part of those challenges of trying to validate paranormal phenomena. It's all about being in the right place at the right time.
What does investigating the paranormal and up to this point, how has it changed your perspective, or what does it make you feel about the afterlife, or what's on the other side of that veil?
Well, I definitely have to say, for me, it has opened my eyes a lot wider, because as I said in the beginning of the show, I didn't have paranormal experiences when I got involved in this field. I was just curious myself as to what was going on out there. Since I've been involved in the field, I've had a lot more of those experiences. So I know that there's something out there. But I think what makes me stand out as a paranormal investigator is I'm not one of those ghost hunters that's going to tell you, yes, ghosts exist and you need to believe. Because in all honesty, if you don't believe in ghosts, you have to experience it for yourself. I could have a great video of a ghost walking right up to the camera going, boo, I'm a ghost. But if you don't believe in ghosts, all you're going to do is just judge my credibility. Mm-hmm. So what the best I can do as a paranormal investigator is document these experiences that we have and hopefully open people's minds to the idea that there is something out there. And so that's all I strive to do, is just hopefully open minds. And so I definitely have had my mind open since I've been in this field to that there's something out there. I've experienced enough to say there's something to this. We're not wasting our time. Mm-hmm. Even when in fact, I guess the biggest eye opener for me was when I started doing my research in touch. I am the first in history to try and validate touch when it comes to the paranormal. when ghosts touch people in various different ways, I started to come up with different experiments, try and validate these experiences because it is such a personal experience. How do you prove that you were touched by something, the unseen? You know, such a personal experience for individuals. So I teamed up with scientists to try and validate these experiences. And when we filmed our documentary Parasense, The Naked Experiments, um, we actually got some amazing results by applying science to the field, developing equipment and monitoring these experiences that people were having as they sat naked alone in a haunted room where physical phenomena had been reported. And when we actually, for the first time, documented a scratch from the beginning, as we, looked over the subject, this is all on camera. We looked them over, didn't have any scratches on them, and then come back after the experiment and they're bleeding. There's, bloody scratches on them, and there's a camera on them the whole time. They just sit there perfectly still as we're documenting this. And I was just like, it brought me to tears because it was like, oh my God, this really did happen. And I've had experiences where, oh, did I get scratched by something? I don't know. I can't recall, how it could have happened, but I start to second guess. Or I've seen people where they're like, oh my God, a scratch appeared. I don't know what happened. And it's just like, okay, well, I have to take your word for it. But to actually experience it for myself from beginning to end was just like, holy crap, this really does happen. So for me, that was one of the big moments throughout my career.
Yeah, and I'd like to get into that as well. But first, June, what has changed your outlook on the afterlife, or has it changed since you've started researching, investigating the paranormal, now knowing things are on the other side? How does it change your outlook on the afterlife, or what do you think's on the other side of that veil?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely a lot more open-minded about it now. You, it's it's still, I mean, I know that there's something out there. I know that, but of course, I don't know exactly what it is. Um, I mean, and also too, you hear these people that say, I know exactly what's going to happen, after I die and everything. It's like, well, I'm, good for you. That's awesome. But, I just, I know there is something, but I just don't know, what it
Well, I
is.
think a good experience for you, June, was after your mother had passed, you had that situation with the smell.
Yeah, that was really weird. Um, I have to say that it was was it a year after she passed, or
I think,
something? But
yeah, it was around the anniversary because I even told you
yeah,
you need to do some recordings.
yeah, it was just like all of a sudden I just smelled this perfume smell, and it was really, really strong. And I was, kind of feeling a little down, everything. I always get a little down when it's kind of the anniversary of my mom's death. And all of a sudden, I just got this really strong perfume smell, and it just hit me that that was my mom's perfume. And and Ross was saying, well, maybe the people upstairs are starting, using a really perfume scented um, fabric softener or something like that. And I was like, no, I know that perfume smell. And so it was really interesting. And a few other things happened. I think that oh, I can't remember all the things that happened, but I thought I saw some movement out of the corner of my eye, like a shadow, and then the perfume smell. But the strange thing about that smell is it just hit me really fast and then completely disappeared that quickly. And I was like, wow,
Mm.
I really know what I really know what I smelled, and I haven't smelled it since or anything. But I think I do think that that was her, coming to visit and just kind of saying that everything's going to be okay. So it was really, really cool,
Yeah.
and I keep the camera on me all night, and I did try to do an EVP session because that's what happens when you're a paranormal investigator. You're like, come on here, can you talk to me? Unfortunately, I didn't hear anything, or I didn't, did anything, but I do think that was just a little high, like, hi, I'm still here. You're
Yeah,
okay.
and
Things will be okay.
that's cool because it's an example of obviously something being on the other side. In the next realm is only way I could really describe it is that other place where you go, like when in near death experiences, or where we see apparitions appear. And like my own experience with the shadow person, which I got on film, insane, but it just made me know that there is that realm right there, right next to us. And one of the things that I wondered, because you talk to mediums that will say that some of these spirits are connected to things here in our what we know as real life, or what we call real life, and they're attached to objects or buildings and or people, and they don't want to let go and go to the other place, wherever that is they go to. So I was wondering, like, what is your perspective on that? Because it I thought about it, and the scenario that I came up with, or the analogy, was like, maybe it's like if you're taking a boat out into the ocean, right? The ocean is vast and scary, big, open, wide, scary place, but you feel more comfortable staying close to shore, right? And it's because it's what you know, and it's safety, and
Right.
it's maybe that's kind of what they're doing, and they're afraid to go out there into that vastness. What do you think about
Well,
that?
I think
I,
so.
I I've often thought that myself too. As we talked about, the attachment to a person, place, or thing. Um, I think in some cases, when some of these spirits realize that they have passed on, maybe they judge themselves and they realize, well, maybe I wasn't a good enough person to go to what I believe is my heaven. And so I feel safe to staying here where I won't be judged for my sins.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's that. But then there is that personality, and some people may experience this for themselves, where we just don't know how to let go.
Yeah.
Some people hold on to toys that they had when they were kids because they don't know how to let go. They need these things. They need to reflect on their past, or they don't know how to let go of their past.
Well,
So I think that
think
is a good combination why you could haunt.
I think that is one of the reasons too. It's like we have a place that we investigate called University Heights, and it used to be an old elementary school. And a lot of people say that they have seen and heard, children, running up and down the hallways, seeing a child, looking out the window, seeing, all different types, children's voices, all different types of things. And part of me thinks that if that was like one of the best times of your life, and you're an elderly woman or whatever, do we have a choice? If you want to manifest yourself as a child again and play in that old schoolyard with some of your old friends, can we be children again? Can we be, can we pick what time in your life? And, that's like some other investigation I think that we had, where this person said that she thought she saw a little girl, and then sometimes she thought she saw, this 12-year-old and a 16-year-old and an elderly woman, and was like, maybe it's all the same person, just manifesting itself at a time
Different
frame that,
ages.
again, different ages. So
Or it could
yeah.
be residual. A lot of
Yeah.
times, a lot of that stuff is just residual hauntings, where these trapped memories are just playing themselves out over and over again. There's
Yeah.
nothing intelligent, with it. It's just these moments that just play out.
Yeah, the whole thought process came because you have some individuals that say they see their loved one that passed on, and their loved one, wanted to come and visit one final time before kind of letting go. And so I was just thinking, because some people talk about that realm as being like this place where these entities or apparitions, these spirits get trapped, and they're trapped in this place. But and I'm like, okay, that maybe, we don't know enough about it to say, but it was like, but being human, then you have those things and those feelings like you guys both described here, where it's just familiarity and kind of like not really wanting to let go of the fact that you are on that other side. And it's like, I'd rather stay closer to what I know instead of going to embrace the unknown or what it is that comes afterwards. Like just like when you're a new kid at school, you kind of just hang by the walls a little bit before you go out to the playground, the vast playground with the new kids, and go have these new experiences. And I was kind of looking at it like, maybe it's a little bit of that.
Or maybe it's even, I was going to say, maybe it's even a little bit of that. I'm sure we're all curious, like when our time comes, how will people respond? How will people go on? Did you affect their life in any way?
Yeah.
Maybe that curiosity may keep you behind as well.
True.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
She better be crying every single day, or he better be. I'm going to go to Rob's house, and he better be sobbing in his pillow.
Yes, every day, June. I do that while you're still alive.
Yes. You're like, why?
Then I did this. I had a thought experiment, because I often do. I just, when there's a subject, and I just think of different avenues and ways to look at things. And so I thought about, I'm like, what if what we think is the paranormal is actually normal? And what if this living, waking life that we live in is the abnormal thing? What if once we get to that other side, because it seems like everything else related to the phenomena is connected to that other side. So what if what if this is like pre-life that we're living right now, and life is actually what we experience once we cross into that other place? This was just a thought experiment.
We could go on forever when it comes to things like that. We don't have the answers, and it's always going to be a guessing game until we can have better communication with the other side. I think that's all it's going to be. And I often wonder too, maybe we're just not ready for the answers right now. Whatever's in charge of the universe is just saying, you know what, we're not mature enough to be able to handle what could be waiting for us when we cross over. So I think right now it's just part of that learning tool. We have to apply our own intelligence and our own skills to get there, to say, okay, it'll be a slow process, and it has been, because like I said, we don't have the answers yet. We just have ideas and theories. So
and don't believe anyone that says they have all the answers. It's like, come on.
That's when we're in trouble.
Until we
that's when we're in trouble. And I had thought about that too. I was like, with all the research being done, and will we ever actually have the answers in waking life? We may never actually get all the answers until we go to that other side and have those final things validated, whatever those questions were that we had in waking life. And that just might be what it is, right?
Right.
You never know.
So what do you what was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you what if you were to look at some of these movies out there, because obviously paranormal is big in pop culture in a lot of the movies that we watch. When you watch some of these movies, which ones do you think most align with what the actual experience is while doing paranormal research? Like, what movie really nailed it or got it?
Oh my gosh, that's a good one, because I think some try to stay true to paranormal phenomena, but then when they have to bring it to an end, then that's when they ruin it. They have to have some dramatic closure, or the experience has to be all dramatic. It's just like, oh, it was so good until it got to here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good ones. One of my favorites and June's as well is The Changeling. That's one where I feel like they kept it more reasonable. It wasn't about special effects, and about the gruesome stories that they could tell. The Changeling was a really good one.
The
I
Awakening.
also
I love
Awakening.
that.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good. Well, I mean, it was back around the turn of the century, but it was a lot of subtle things, and I don't know. Well,
I think
she could see. Nobody
right.
else. Who knows?
I think for me, some of my favorites when it comes to Hollywood's perspective of the paranormal is like the classic The Haunting, where it's more of a psychological story rather than going into physical showing apparitions. Not the remake. The remake is when it took it to let's use special effects and show the ghosts. The original black and white one, that for me was a great story when it came to the paranormal.
And The Uninvited, good too. Yeah, with that.
Yeah. So I like it when they rely mostly on the psychological aspect of a haunting rather than trying to show ghosts. Because in a lot of cases, you don't see ghosts.
Yeah.
Most of our investigations are just strange noises, strange feelings, things being moved around. You don't always see an apparition.
Yeah, I've been doing this since 2005, and I would say, let's see, I have seen, it's been about 3 or 4 times I've seen a shadow person that I could not explain. And the rest of the times it's been, noises, voices, EVPs, but I have never seen a full-bodied apparition. But
And I'm right there with June. I've been doing this longer than she has, and I have yet to see what most people describe as an apparition, where I could identify a sex, their clothing, or anything like that. The closest I've come to is seeing a dark mass or a shadow figure. So that's the closest I've come to what would be an apparition.
right.
And so you talked about, with those movies, if I feel like you felt like those movies more captured the essence or the feeling of what you experienced, which movie would you say though, because you have ones where they depict researchers or investigators in the film and they use certain equipment or they do certain, so which one research wise would you say is more accurate with what you guys do in the field?
Are we talking about documentary or are we talking still Hollywood?
Could be
so
documentary.
That's the problem is some of these, and I hate to ruin it for some individuals, is some of these advertise themselves as documentaries and then you find out that it was all fake.
Like the Blackwell Ghost.
The Blackwell Ghost is a famous one. Where he even promoted it as this is a documentary, this is my research, and then come to find out it was all faked. So you find a lot of those, and sometimes me and June will sit down and we'll watch some of these shows together. We'll hang out for the weekend and watch a lot of the ghost shows, and sometimes you're wondering, is this supposed to be a documentary or is this supposed to be because they'll play themselves out that way. It's like, oh, here's a team going out to investigate this haunted place, and then all this paranormal stuff happens.
You're like,
so
wow.
It becomes a guessing game as to which is real and which is fake.
Well, and most of it's, and if they do say it's real, it's like, come on.
Believe me, I wish a lot of the stuff, like Ghostbusters, I wish we had that equipment. I would love it.
You must be reading my mind, because I had a Ghostbuster question for you, and I'm going to ask it right after this break. And also, I'm going to ask a controversial question for some, because some out there think that this particular series was real. I just want to know how you guys feel about it. But we're going to go ahead and jump into another break, our last break of the night right now, guys. So you guys don't go anywhere as we get ready to line up your questions and get to asking those next as well. Don't go anywhere right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. We will be right back. All right, we are clear. Another 5-minute break. So if you have anything you need to do, this is it.
You holding up, June?
Yeah, I'm holding up.
This will be our last half hour. And yeah, it's wild because I was saving the Ghostbuster one. I'm glad you kind of went into that because yeah, I definitely want to ask about that and in this show. And this show that some people I know they really like it, but I watched it, and maybe it's just because I'm naive to some of the practices. Maybe they're doing everything by the book, and maybe it's authentic, and I would love to know that. But then maybe it's like, nah, it's some BS, and I would like to know that too, because I am one that feels like, especially in this field that we're all in, this phenomena field, that if there are fraudsters out there, or if there are people that are disingenuous, that those people should be called out, because they in turn make everyone else not look so great, right? They kind of muddy the waters for what is really some really good research is going on, or people that are really invested into finding out answers and getting us to the truth. So
and you brought up a very good point, because that's the biggest problem we have in this field, is because it is so easy to manipulate the audience with editing equipment that you have on your phone nowadays. Kids can do it now. Kids can put ghosts in videos and in audio and stuff, and it's become popular that if you are starting a show, even if it doesn't have ghosts, but if you're starting like a YouTube show and you want to draw in an audience, create a ghost video. Say, oh, I was just doing some woodwork, and the cabinet doors opened up behind me. Oh my God, it's a ghost. It draws in an audience, and there you go. You got a bunch of subscribers.
See, and I have too much integrity for that, right? So,
and it's hard. And it's what I was going to say is, as you were starting to bring up, it does make it harder for us paranormal investigators when there's far more fake stories and fake evidence for us to go chasing dead end roads, because we need true phenomena to try and validate these experiences and have a better understanding of what's happening in the paranormal world.
Yeah, and it's just so easy for people like that to camouflage or hide within the field, because we are dealing with the unknown. We're dealing with things we don't have all the answers to. So it's very easy, just like you said, for someone to come in and make a fake video in order to get eyes, and then kind of, the audience doesn't know the difference. They just know that they're dealing with the unknown. And I think I just don't like it. Like I said, I have integrity, too much integrity that wouldn't allow me to do that. I know I could easily make something fake real quick and be like, hey, look at this thing.
I could probably be bigger in the paranormal field if I'd make up a bunch of shit. I've been cut from television shows because I wouldn't make up stuff. They wanted me to make up ghost stories, make it scarier, and I refused, and they cut me from the show, which is fine. I've worked too hard to build my credibility to have one show ruin it for me.
That's why whenever someone, as long as you aren't being too vicious, but I can appreciate pointing out those that might not be authentic, or because you need to know, audience needs to know. Don't waste your time on that. Wait, because they could be watching Ross and June doing real research instead, right? So kind of focus on the people who are really doing it and doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
So so we'll be calling out. Well, I'll be bringing up the show, and we'll see what your opinion is on it. But Rue Riders,
I'm curious now.
Now hopefully you know what it is. I think you should. It's on YouTube, and it's just someone told me to watch it. They were just like, oh man, you got to see this. And then I watched it, and I'm coming open-minded, and I'm like, okay, I really want to see what this is about. And there were just things that it just didn't feel right. Like you get that gut feeling like, yeah, something's up here, but maybe it's just because my naivety where I just don't understand what it is they're doing. And they could be doing everything right. And it could be like, yo, no, yeah, that's authentic. And I'm like, okay, well, it's just one of those need to know sort of moments for me. But Polly Rodderman, thanks for coming in. Dead Fish Cheese Spread, thanks for showing up. Let's see. Who else came in here? Resonant, I see you out there. Yes, we got about 30 seconds. Luna Cole, I see you out there. And I got a few of your questions, guys. Any more questions, definitely put them in caps so I can tag them. And we will jump right back into this here in 15 seconds. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Space Out Radio After Hour 1.5. We're in the back half of the second hour. That means we only have 23 minutes left with our guests here, Ross Allison and June Nixon, talking paranormal, getting into paranormal research, all sorts of questions. We're going to get into your questions next. So you guys sit back, don't go anywhere as we jump right back into the conversation. And we're going to do it like this. So, not to downplay paranormal research or anything, but I did have, you were talking about Ghostbusters right before the break. And I wanted to know, looking at what part of what they do lines up with actual paranormal research, or is there anything? Because they have different little equipment that they use. Is anything that they use, anything about what they use or their approach, does it line up with anything that you actually do in the field?
Oh my gosh. I'd have to say, unfortunately, no. It is a lot of, I'm thinking of the equipment like ghost traps. Oh gosh, I wish, and proton packs, even the PK meter, which would have been cool to have in the field. Again, to develop tools like that, we have to have a better understanding of the paranormal. We have to understand what triggers, what readings are we actually looking for. We don't have that information yet.
Yeah.
So to be able to capture a ghost, you have to know what a ghost is made of, what you need to contain that matter or whatever it is that a ghost is made of. So I wish, I really do, because I'm a fan of Ghostbusters. I love the shows. I'm glad it's made a comeback. So yeah, it's a fun show, but it's again mostly fantasy.
So it sounds like Ghostbuster tech is a place to get to. You want to get to that sort of tech at some point. Okay,
that would be amazing.
I like that. Okay. And another thing before we jump into these questions, you're talking during the break and before as well about just this field that we're in, and some people are in it for not the right reasons, and they're not actually conducting actual research. And for the person that doesn't really know better, they won't be able to tell because we're dealing with the unknown here. So it can be paraded as actual work, but if you talk to an investigator like yourself, you may look at that and have a different perspective and say, no, that's not actually what we do. That's a bunch of BS. And so I'm one that doesn't have a problem with pointing those sort of people out in the field. And I just had a question about there was a show.
We should just have a show just on that, I tell you.
we can make it happen. Believe me, we can make it happen. There was a show that someone told me to watch, and I watched it. And I just want to know if you've seen it, and then if you, based on your knowledge within this field, if you feel like what they're doing is authentic or maybe not so much. That would be a show called Hellier. Have you seen Hellier?
Yeah.
I haven't.
This is what they're a couple, and
Yeah.
it's I think Dana Newkirk. They're the Newkirks, right? You're familiar, June?
Oh, I know of the
It's
Newkirks.
let's
Yes.
just say it's entertaining. It's very entertaining and it's very dramatic. It is. It was kind of a guilty pleasure for me because I thought I was just going to watch it, and I thought they did a really good job, hooking you to want to see what happens next. I didn't really believe any of it at all,
Mhm. Okay.
at all. Honestly, but it was very entertaining, and I liked some of the drama that they put in there. It was kind of fun,
Okay.
but yeah,
So that's the married couple, right?
yeah,
Yes.
that were
Newkirks.
the
Yes.
ones that
So
they started off
Greg
first.
and Dana Newkirk. Yeah.
Yeah, they started off first as debunk or not debunking, but making
the
fun.
skeptics, yes,
Yeah,
they were hardcore skeptics. They had a channel out there. They were trashing everybody in the paranormal field. They trashed, a lot of the big names at the time, saying they were just a bunch of fakes. So they have this history of trashing everybody in the paranormal field, and then all of a sudden
hmm
they deleted all that stuff, got rid of all the chats and stuff, and everything of them trashing everybody in the paranormal field, and came back as experts in the paranormal field.
Mm.
hmm
Okay.
So obviously they weren't making the getting the attention as skeptics. They came back as paranormal experts, and now they're getting all this attention.
That is awesome. I appreciate your candor in answering that question because the reason why I asked is because it was being promoted to me so hardcore by someone in the field, and I took the time to sit down and watch it, and I agree with June. It had some really riveting
hmm
suspenseful moments that kept you to watch the next episode, and by the end of the first season I was like, nah, not watching the second one
Yeah.
because of what just happened, what I just witnessed happen here. And I just had this gut feeling that maybe there was something up behind that, but I didn't know that story, Ross. That's interesting
Yeah.
that there was a whole
Yeah, if
skeptic
you do
side.
some research, it's a little hard. They did a pretty good job deleting, but a few people found it and published a lot of their trash talk about the paranormal field. So it is out there, unless they've gone through and got rid of some of that stuff again. But yeah, that I was forewarned when I came into the field through some people in the field and said, "Watch out for these guys. If you as you start to get bigger, they're gonna start trashing you." And
Mm,
I never had that issue because by that time they turned around and came back as paranormal experts.
yikes. Okay, nice.
So
It's on
yeah,
record. If that's on record, hey, and that's just, I mean, you're a researcher, you do this, you're out there, and you can look at this and judge if it's authentic or not based on the knowledge that you have, and which is why I leaned on you guys to go ahead and get your perspective. So that is awesome, and I'm all for it any time of the day. So that's great. So with that being said, now that I have that satisfied, let me go ahead and jump into some of these questions. T-Bone wanted to know, in your collection, do you have any shrunken heads?
I don't. There to get stuff, authentic ones, not the ones that are made out of goat skin. There's a lot of fake ones out there. But to get stuff like that that's authentic, even getting a full skeleton. I have a real human skeleton. Besides just a skeleton hand, I own a real human skeleton. Things like that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And I
Wow.
just don't have the extra funds, especially when it is more authentic, especially when it comes with like human skeletons. And also too, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but there are strict laws depending on the state you live in to obtain human tissue. So it's okay to own bones, but if there's human tissue on the bones, there is laws that you have to go by. So that's one of the things you have to be aware of if you're going to own human remains.
Is there a reason, like one you can point to for that?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that sometimes, I don't know, you could kill people and have their remains on display and say, oh yeah, this is just part of my collection. I don't know
Yeah.
the full laws, but I do remember that was brought to my attention when I was looking to obtain a few pieces.
Wow.
That was something I had to look into.
Okay. Polly Rotterman's asking you, have you ever heard about a giant spider species in another planet related to my experience? If you do, what is their goal with humans?
That I don't know. I apologize. My main focus is just ghosts and a little dabble in psychic research. I am fascinated with other species, other planets. I do believe that we're not the only ones out there. I think there's probably other things out there. So I know June dabbles a little bit more into that stuff. I don't.
I am a ancient alien fan and everything like that, but
So June's more weirder than I am.
But we're finding out that the paranormal might be normal. So
yeah, I tell you,
what's weird, right? Okay.
Yes.
So Anne Joanne is kind of going off what you just said about the skeleton. She said, "Why do you have a human skeleton?"
It was part of my death museum.
Mm-hmm.
I actually purchased a human skeleton because I wanted to have something to go to talk about on my lecture tours and also with my death museum. And it was just presented to me. This guy said, "Hey, you got a death museum. Do you want a human skeleton?" And I was like, "Sure." It is kind of odd to own a piece like that because after having the death museum for as long as I had it, I think it was about 15 years that I had the death museum. And it's one of those things that as you started to collect not only just the skeletal remains of a human being, but you also, as you get into death customs, human hair was very collectible. As a memento for somebody you had lost, you would collect their hair. Teeth became collectible. I didn't have any pieces that had teeth, but there are certain things that people would collect from an individual as a keepsake, and not let alone having this hair of individuals and photos of all these individuals. I couldn't tell their stories. And that was kind of heartbreaking for me, is because here's photos and hair and the human skeletal remains of these individuals. I had no clue who they were. When I obtained the skeletal remains, all I know that was passed down to me, it was a young man who died in the early 1900s. His body was donated to the local university. The universities didn't want to obtain human remains anymore, especially when it came to skeletal remains, because the bones were very brittle. And not only that, the rib cage is hard to maintain. The cartilage in the rib cage becomes very brittle and is very easy to break. And so with the plastics that they have, and as they became more lifelike with plastic engineering and stuff, these fake human skeletons were more sturdier and more affordable than human ones. So the university sold them off. And so that's how I was able to obtain this one. But like I said, to get to my point is, I have the human remains of an individual and I can't tell you anything about them. And it does become heartbreaking. And that's when, with my death museum, I always remind people when they took my tour is how much we need to appreciate technology today, especially social media, when it comes to things like Facebook, Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Social media is a way to document our life experience. And that will remain even after we die.
Mm-hmm.
So where those people in our past, our ancestors, they're dependent on people telling our story.
Yeah.
But the families die out unless you were famous and were documented throughout history. Sure, people may tell your story today, but otherwise, most of us become forgotten individuals.
Yeah.
You know, your great grandchildren, you know, probably won't even know who the hell you were, or even maybe even know your name. But now through social media, they can look you up.
Yeah.
They will know your story from day to day, how well you kept up your social media.
And
So
what
your
you
story,
ate today. No.
yeah, what you ate, you know. So it is amazing thing that we have some sort of achieved a little more of that immortality, that even though we may not become somebody who is worth remembering, you know, throughout, you know, the world, at least our families will have a better idea of who we were, what
Yeah.
we contributed to the families, you know, ladder.
And
So
I thought about that too a while back. I was like, this data is going to be here forever. And who's to say, I was thinking about the terms of service they have you agree to when you set up these social media accounts. And I'm like, okay, this is your life history in this media account. And how will they 100 years from now deal with the family? If the family wanted to come and get your records from social media, would they be okay giving it to the family, or would they do something like charge the family, or do something kind of sell your data to your own family? I
I
thought
think,
about that.
you know, I think with things like Facebook, I get kind of upset when people are just like, oh, I hate Facebook, I just deleted it all. That's so much of your history. And again, it just depends on the individual. Some people don't keep it up to date, but I think that's so much history that is just deleted. And you know, Facebook does see the opportunities that it does offer for situations where if somebody does die, and I know June did this for her mother, that page now becomes a memorial page.
Mm,
So it's out there. So just like nowadays where you can visit somebody at their grave, and now you can watch videos of their life. You know,
mhm.
it's the same thing as, you know, Facebook, but you get more details, you know, through Facebook than you would just watching like a minute video of somebody's, you know, life that you put together to play at their tombstone.
Um,
So I really think that that is an amazing thing that we shouldn't overlook.
yeah, yeah,
That your story can continue on, at least for your family.
yeah. My
So
whole thing was like, who owns the rights to it though? Once it becomes that, like, does Facebook
well,
carry the rights?
obviously Facebook, you know,
Yeah,
as long as
yeah.
Facebook continues, our stories will continue. I'm assuming if Facebook decides one day it shuts down, I hate to see all that history gone from everybody's
Yeah.
lives.
I'm gonna have to do a show on that. That makes sense to do a show on that topic right there.
Hmm.
But Carl Bittner is asking you, did Ross, as far as the touch experiment, did Ross actually see the scratch appearing, and did the subject react to it when it occurred?
So there was two experiences that we had that we documented for the documentary Parasense. One was the scientist was testing the equipment. That's why he wasn't naked. If you watch the trailer, he was just testing the equipment and decided to try and communicate with whatever was there, and got scratched. And so he reacted to the response because he felt it. He actually heard it as well. It's like a static pop when it happened, and then he felt it. So when it comes to the document, uh, well, the reason why I bring up the fact that, you know, he was clothed is we didn't do the full check him out, you know, before the experiment and then after the experiment when it came to Chad's experience, because he was just testing the equipment. When we do the actual experiments, we always, both of us, me and Chad, who's the scientist in the documentary, we look over the subject before the experiments, and then they sit down, and then we check them out right after the experiments. When they stand up, we look them over. So they're on video the whole time. So when we looked them over at the very beginning, neither one of us noticed a scratch. And we look everywhere. because we have to document any marks.
You video their whole body and just show it on record. You don't just look and say, "Yeah, they look fine." You video it all.
Yeah,
So,
we video the whole experiment, from beginning to the end, and looking them over. It's all on video. So we did not see a scratch, and we looked at that spot. And then once the experiment ended, we go back and we look at them, and that's when we noticed that he was bleeding, and he was bleeding from the wrist. So it was a situation where his hand was down, and we were actually monitoring. We were doing some experiments when it comes to Carillion. So his hand was on a sensor the whole time, and this is a smooth, round sensor that he has his hand on. And we even checked to see if the surfaces where his wrist was, if there was anything sharp or anything that he could have rubbed his wrist against. There was nothing. So and this is all on video. He's documented the whole time, and there's not just one camera on him. We're talking, I think we have about 6 cameras that monitor a 360 around the subject. So we can see, even if they were trying to manipulate us as the investigators to produce something, that's all documented. So he does not move his wrist at all. His hand is resting on a sensor. Then he didn't feel it. It wasn't until we brought it to his attention, like, "You're bleeding." And he's like, "Oh my God." And so we went back and watched the sensor equipment, the readings that we took at the time. And there was one point where something came up to him and left. And this is documented through the readings.
Wow.
So something happened. But later, as you know, and that's one thing, and I know we've all experienced this, where all of a sudden you'll feel that burning sensation or itching sensation. You go to look and like, "Oh, I got scratched. How did that happen?"
Yeah.
So it was the same thing for him. He didn't feel it when it happened, but of course later he was starting to feel that burning sensation.
Okay. All right. T-Bone is asking, have you ever dealt with a debut box? Or I don't know if I'm saying that right. DYBBUK box. Have you heard of that before?
No.
That's the one with and Zach Bagans has one in his museum, and that's a kind of, isn't a Jewish tradition with supposed to be some sort of capturing some evil spirit or something that's kept in there. I can't remember the history of it, but there's a movie about it, and there's a whole bunch of other things.
I personally haven't.
All right, let me look that up.
Debit box or something like that.
No, it's spelling it right. DYBB.
Debix.
And it is it's a Dybbuk box.
Dybbuk's box, yeah. Dybbuk's
paranormal antique wine cabinet claimed to be haunted by Dybbuk, a concept from Judaism. So it looks like a little liquor cabinet.
I have heard of the case, but I have not personally experienced it.
Okay, so with that being said, that is the last question, and we have about 45. Well, yeah, about 45 seconds with you here. Can you tell everybody where they can find you both at?
Well, I always encourage people, check me out on Facebook, Ross Allison Ghost Hunter. Follow me there. That's always a great place to see what I'm doing, because as I talked about earlier, that's the one social media I do keep up on. Also I'll do live investigations a lot of times when me and June are doing some fun stuff. Also, to check out my books on Amazon. I've got about 10 books out there. I've got a couple more that I'm working on. And then also to check out Parasense. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to touchedbyaghost.com.
All right.
.org. Yeah.
Say that again.
Aghost.org.
A ghost.
Oh yeah, our group, aghost.org, the Advanced Ghost Hunters of Seattle, Tacoma.
Okay, all right, awesome stuff. I appreciate you both coming in tonight. Great conversation. We will stay in touch, and we'll find a new topic to broach, and we'll do that soon.
You bet.
All right, you guys have a great rest of your night. Take care. And for the rest of you guys, we are getting ready to go into the last break of the night right here on Spaced Out Radio. You guys don't go anywhere. Hour 3 action packed.
That move the needle.
Conversations that move the
You're
needle.
listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 3 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to get into some really good stuff here for the third hour. We got Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries. And then, of course, we're being joined by Drew Banky, the after hours wrap up. You guys don't go anywhere. Got about 10 seconds before we come back from radio. Let's go. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We're on the third and final hour. We're going to be getting into some Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Persons Mysteries. Then we'll be joined by our guy, Drew Banky, with the After Hours wrap-up. Then maybe some UFO and weird news. Don't go anywhere. You're at the right place right here, Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. And we are going to jump right in to Steve Stockton. And here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. Hello, friends. Steve Stockton here. In this episode, we're going to take a look at some bizarre disappearances from hospitals. Join me. Let's walk and see. First up, we have the story of Joan Gay Croft. On April 9, 1947, the deadliest tornado ever to hit Oklahoma went raging through parts of the state. A monstrous and deadly Class F5 was a maelstrom of wind and debris, and it ripped through parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. At some point, it blew a path through the town of Woodward, Oklahoma, leaving in its wake chaos, destruction, tragedy, and death. In the end, 185 people were deceased, 1,000 more were injured, and it was the beginning of one of the strangest unsolved mysteries in Oklahoma's history. Although many people tragically lost their lives to the whirling cyclone of death, there were many, many more who were spared. One of those who was lucky enough to have escaped death's clutches was a 4-year-old named Joan Gay Croft. Joan's mother had been killed in the natural disaster, and her stepfather had been critically injured, but Joan herself had come away from the brush with death with a non-life-threatening injury in the form of a piece of wood that penetrated her leg. She was found and rushed to the hospital for treatment, along with her sister, Jerry, who had also suffered non-life-threatening injuries. There was obviously a huge influx of seriously injured people, some on the brink of death due to the storm. And so the girls were quickly and easily treated and then relegated to the basement of the overcrowded hospital, as it had been transformed into a shelter where many refugees from the tornado were being housed and treated. They were there for a night, and things were chaotic and sad, but they got through it together. The next day, 2 men in what were described as khaki army uniforms went into the hospital and made their way down to the basement. They went straight for Joan and tried escorting her out of the basement in front of everyone else, which by now was at least a few hundred people, despite the little girl's loud protests and screaming. They knew who she was because when they first entered the basement, they'd asked a member of the overworked and overtired staff who she was, asked for her by name, specifically, and the staff member pointed her out. They didn't seem to be interested in anyone but the 4-year-old girl. Joan screamed and cried, pleading with the men not to make her leave her sister, and the men patiently comforted her, telling her that they were friends and that she would be back there in just a few hours to collect Jerry so they could be brought to wherever they were going together. The hospital staff realized what was going on after seeing the commotion and tried their best to intervene, and as they did, the men were very calm and composed, seemingly very professional, and they then explained that they were merely taking the girls, Joan first and then Jerry, to another hospital where the girls' relatives were waiting for them. Somehow, the men were allowed to leave with the little girl, as apparently that explanation was deemed good enough for whoever was in charge. But no one ever returned with Joan, and she was never seen or heard from again. Nobody ever saw the 2 men again either. Eventually, it was discovered that Joan had vanished and had more than likely been abducted. And when that happened, a major manhunt was launched for her, but it turned up almost nothing at all. In fact, her kidnappers have never been identified, and no trace of them or Joan has ever been found. The case gained international coverage, which meant it was a big deal at the time, a time when most cases didn't get much further than the local media and news. And in the years to come, it spawned many anniversary articles asking what could have happened to the little girl and who her alleged abductors were. On May 22, 1993, the case was covered on the show Unsolved Mysteries, and it featured a full dramatic reenactment of the whole bizarre event. Interestingly enough, many women have come forward throughout the years claiming to be the adult Joan Gay Croft, but those leads have never gone anywhere, and all the women have been ruled out either genetically or by some other means. In 1999, a woman came forward to the editor of the newspaper, The Oklahoman, claiming to be Joan, but she then ceased all communication after the initial contact and failed to show up for the planned meeting with the editor. This happened again with a woman living in Canada, and obviously no one knows whether or not either of those women would have been the long-lost little girl. Despite dozens of women throughout the decades who claimed to be the little girl, none of them have ever proven to be, and that leaves us with nothing but theories to go on, as Joan Gay Croft is still listed as a missing person. Most people believe she was kidnapped due to obvious reasons, but that doesn't explain the series of bizarre events that happened leading up to the alleged abduction. Who were the men? How did they know about Joan, who she was, and where she was? Why were they specifically looking for her out of the dozens of other kids who had been orphaned or at least stranded in the shelter due to the devastation of the tornado? And why not take her sister too? They knew her name, and so they must have known at least of her, but what did they want, and how were they able to publicly take her yet leave behind no clues or traces and never be seen again? For their part, Joan's family believes that some other family lost their daughter in the disaster and wanted to replace her with Joan. But, just like everything else, there's never been any proof to that theory. Simply put, no one knows what happened to Joan Gay Croft, and more than likely, no one ever will. Next up, we have Jerry Irwin. Another strange vanishing that has more than just a little bizarre and unexplained element to it is the disappearance of Private First Class Jerry Irwin. On March 2, 1959, Jerry woke up at a hospital in Cedar City, Utah, with no memory of how he ended up there in the first place. He had reportedly been unconscious for 23 hours, during which time he had been talking in his sleep and saying something about the jacket on the brush. When he came to, he asked the hospital staff if there were any survivors, but no one knew what he meant by that. Survivors of what? No one knew, including Jerry himself. Finally, though, he became lucid enough to tell his story, and it seemed like his memory was coming back to him. He told the staff that he had just been off on a leave of absence and on his way home from Napa, Idaho, going to Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, where he was stationed. He said he was a technician for Nike Air Missiles, and that after he had reached Cedar City, he had been driving along Route 14 when he looked up and saw what he described as a strange, pulsating object in the sky. He pulled over and got out of his car to try and get a closer look at what he was seeing, and he thought that at first it was a large airplane coming in for a possible emergency landing. Jerry then wrote a note which he put on his car windshield that said, "Have gone to investigate possible plane crash. Please call law enforcement officers." He also scrawled the word "stop" on the side of his vehicle to try and get whoever was passing by to stop and read the note, thereby calling attention to it and alerting the authorities about it. He simply scrawled the word "stop" in shoe polish and then walked off to investigate the strange sight in the sky. A fish and game inspector came along and found the note sometime later, and after alerting the sheriff's office, a search party was launched both for Jerry and for the alleged plane crash he claimed to have gone to investigate. When he was brought to the hospital, no one could understand why he was completely out cold and unable to be woken up by any of the usual means, and there also seemed to be nothing physically wrong with him either. When he did finally wake up, he claimed that his jacket was missing, but that he otherwise felt perfectly normal, if not a little tired and confused. He was then transferred to William Beaumont Hospital at Fort Bliss, so that there he could be observed for 4 days, and after that he was put back on duty and into circulation. Not too long after continuing his duties, Jerry began suffering random fainting spells while on duty, and, fearing for his health, his superiors at the base made him go and get evaluated again at the hospital. He fainted again, and when he woke up at the hospital, he was said to have been in a similar state to when he had first been there a few weeks earlier. He woke up suddenly, panicked, and once again started asking the hospital staff if there had been any survivors. It seemed like he was having some sort of flashback, and when he woke up that time, he thought he had been waking up originally, meaning Jerry Irwin was completely unaware that any time had passed at all between when he left the note on his car and woke up. He didn't know he had been on duty for all those weeks, or that he had been fainting. He had no memory at all of the previous weeks, and in his mind, he had only just gone to investigate a possible plane crash. He was kept at the hospital for a full month for observation, and was then once again released back on base into active duty. The very next day, he suddenly left base without permission and got on a bus to El Paso, stopping at Cedar City and disembarking. He then headed directly to where he had originally parked his car on the side of the road, and to the same area where he'd originally been investigating what he thought was a possible plane crash. He apparently found his jacket, and inside one of the pockets was a pencil shoved inside of a buttonhole with a piece of paper entwined around it. Jerry purportedly burned the paper, but then came out of whatever trance he was seemingly in, then returned to the road. He was picked up there by the local sheriff. The sheriff told Jerry what had happened to him, but he had no recollection at all of leaving the base, or as to why he had traveled back to that very spot. He also had no idea what was on the paper that he burned, or why he had burned it in the first place. Jerry Irwin was subjected to another extensive psychological evaluation, but when no further answers could be found, a deeper analysis was ordered. He was once again put into Beaumont Hospital for tests and additional evaluation, but then he was almost immediately released again. As soon as he was released, he once again went AWOL without any warning, and he hasn't been seen or heard from since. So, what happened to Jerry Irwin? And why was he seemingly so obsessed with that particular location on the side of the road? Why had he gone back there? What happened to him initially that made it so he was so knocked out that even the usual methods of waking someone up from a stupor proved useless when used on him? How and why had he been so entranced that he had no memory of returning to that spot, or why he had burned that piece of paper? If he was tranced or knocked out, or both, then by whom and why? There are so many questions here, but with no answers. It's impossible to understand mostly anything about this case and what happened to Jerry himself after he went missing again. Why was he continuously released from the hospital? And if it was really because nothing could be found to be wrong with him, then what was going on with him? One of the main questions is, how did he end up at that hospital in the first place? But again, we'll probably never know, and there's been no new information about this case, though conspiracies and rumors run rampant around it still to this day. Jerry Irwin is still listed as a missing person.
All right, Steve Stockton, awesome stuff once again, just batting 1,000 at this point, right here on the After Hours Radio Show. We're just so happy that we get to air his content here. You can find him over on his own YouTube page, Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. You can catch a bunch of other stories over there. The guy is awesome, and we love it. So we're going to go ahead now and jump into the After Hours wrap-up. All right, After Hours wrap up with our guy Drew Banky in the building. Drew, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Interesting interview.
Man, okay, we went down to paranormal, and you know that's like a sharp right from yesterday, and it was actually awesome conversation. Ross Allison, June Nixon, shout out to them once again. Yeah. So, what did you think? Let's start with the creepy ass doll. Okay, did you see it, and what did you think about that?
I seen it. Let's start and end it right there.
Dude,
Dolls creep me out, man. Dolls creep me out, you know.
it's number one on my list. It's number one.
And then the dude's got a skeleton, like, I don't know.
A full skeleton. And I was
It was an interesting conversation. That's about the wrap up I got on it.
They asked, and it was I think it was Ann Joanne that asked, why do you have a skeleton? I was like, wait, that's a good question. Then it made sense. It was donated to science, and that's how you get it. Because yeah, that makes total sense. Then why he would have a full human skeleton? Because he initially said he had the human hand, and I was like, wow, that's amazing.
It would drive me crazy not knowing the story, like the life story behind a person of that skeleton. You know, it would drive me absolutely insane. It'd probably drive me insane having a skeleton. That's you know, I got a list of things, people that I know, things that I've heard, and I have yet to be in the presence or hear someone say it come out of their mouth that I have a human skeleton. And now, you know, now that's part of my life. I quasi know someone that has a skeleton, and that's a weird statement.
It is, Drew. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better, man. It is. But and when you think about it, though, because it goes beyond paranormal research, they're paranormal researchers, investigators. But then the thing that stands out from other paranormal research investigators is they have this death museum. And when I talked to him last time, about a year ago, he still had it up, where it was a location where he had all this stuff that had been gathered and, you know, from haunted places. And, you know, I think that adds another element to it. And then when you have something like that, then yeah, that you probably would have some of the things that we looked at here. And that was just the scratching the surface of it. She had the doll in the house with her. I don't know that could be a thing for me, but I guess if you're into paranormal research, you're kind of used to that stuff. So it doesn't really make you feel any kind of way. But it was even creepier than I could imagine when she brought it out. I was just like, wow, because I was expecting something along the lines of like an Annabelle doll, one of the old ventriloquist dolls. But that doll right there should have his own movie, dude. You could build a franchise around that doll right there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty creepy stuff, man. I don't know.
And I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
The whippy ceremonies that we go through, I would consider some of those like paranormal experiences, you know, like just weird experiences like that. But yeah, I don't know about the dolls, man. You know, I just don't know about the dolls and the skeletons. But some people are freaked out that, you know, the people that have any skeletons are all like, you know, I got a buffalo skull above me, you know, and it's a you know, having animal parts is a really big part of Native American spirituality, and you know, the ceremonies and stuff like that. You know, I got a buffalo hide over there on the wall. That's off to my left. So it's all a matter of perspective. You know, some people are freaked out about any animal parts or or any parts like that, bones or skulls or anything like that. So I'm not judging. It's just it kind of shocked me. I was like, wow. I was like,
yeah,
okay, we're going to talk about this afterwards.
You bring up a good point, though, man. You do have remnants of a living thing. It's actual head, disembodied head, up on your wall. Which, if you think about it, is kind of weird and kind of strange.
Let's see. I can't get the camera there.
Yeah, that used to be alive, roaming the pastures somewhere. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
so it's almost the same thing, but it's not. But human, obviously, is
Kinda.
another levels, next level. But
yeah,
it made me think, and I was thinking the other day because you know, I talked about the whole experience I had with my dog and brought it back to life. And you know, we have the dad of that dog here as well. And then I was thinking, would I be willing to, take my dog once it passes away to like a taxidermist. Some people do that. They take their pets and they take them to a taxidermist. I'm like,
Sure.
I don't know if I could do that. I don't think that I could. But if I was like into that stuff, if I owned a death museum they're involved with, then maybe I would. I guess it takes a special kind of person to be able to have that and feel okay. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I would if I would go if I were down that road. That's why I'm not saying I'm not judging it. It's just seems out of the norm for me. But then looking at animal parts and stuff like that, I kind of get it. But uh, if I were in that position, I would have to know the story of that person, man. Like, what's their name? When were they born? When they die? Like what's the story behind that person that belonged in there?
I wonder.
There has to be some energy, you know.
I wonder if you could at this point take get some go into the bone to the marrow, get some of the marrow and then run DNA on it and then find out at least the lineage or where it could originate. You know what I mean? Maybe get some data that way. I wonder if you could do that. I don't see why you couldn't. If marrow is present inside of the bone, then you should be able to run DNA on it, I would think.
I would think so.
That
And
would,
it's the it would stand to reason that it's not that old, you know.
yeah.
It's
And
probably like less, 30, 40 years old that the person passed away. So there's probably records somewhere, and I'm sure that there's DNA evidence, that like something that's that they it was at a what, a university or college or something before that.
I think
So
so.
I'm sure there's extensive, studied
Paperwork
all
on it.
types of different ways, 100 million different ways, because it was being studied. Wasn't just like stored somewhere. So I'm sure there's some information somewhere, but I would have to know, like, if I had something like that, I would have to know.
That's intriguing. It's very intriguing. And no, you're right. I'm sure the paperwork probably comes with the skeleton. So I'm pretty
Mm.
sure he has the records. But just as someone, like, if I just found a skeleton or something and no paperwork included, I would probably be curious as you're saying, and I would probably go down the route of using DNA just to see, right? Because you never know. Find out that it was, this real famous person. You have the skeleton of this person who was very important in living life or something along those lines. I think that would be pretty cool to find out.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger part of the death museum is that it's a collection of items that have some sort of spiritual or haunted past. So you have maybe things that are attached to these things, spirits or forces, and
Absolutely.
that part of it
Absolutely.
is the scary part, really.
Absolutely. There's an energetic connection behind it, for sure. It never you even know that energy, like, that is in that incarnation, is probably in another incarnation or somewhere else in the universe, in some construct, in some dimensional field. There's still a connection back to that because it's being talked about, so it's, just like the experiment we do with the lighter, from time to time on here. That energy's still in that body, just because we're talking about right now is giving that skeleton energy, and
Yeah.
and in turn going back to the original owner of it.
Look, and someone in the crowd tonight is saying you can find his relatives death is cheese spread. So yeah, okay, think about that. I just show up randomly at someone's door, like, yeah, I think I have your relative here. Like, I think, yeah, what kind of conversation is that gonna be, right? As we got about 10 seconds before we
I
go to
think
break quick.
I think that information is probably locked away, and that may have been like an agreement that when they donated the body, like,
Yeah, you would think so, right? So we're going to go ahead and get more into this conversation because there were other things we talked about tonight. It's going to be an awesome wrap up tonight. You guys don't go anywhere as we get into the back half of this show, right? It's been awesome all night. Stick around. We got more right here on the Spaced Out Radio After Hours Radio Show. See you in a minute. All right. Good stuff. Yeah. Creepy. I was just blown away. The doll I got to go back and rewatch because I know my reaction was probably insane because I just wasn't expecting it to be that creepy. They call it Mr. Creepy. The doll's name is Mr. Creepy, and he really fits the bill. I've never seen a doll, because even baby dolls with the blinking eyes and stuff, those ones scare me, right? So ventriloquist dolls are up there, period, because they all have this creepy, lifelike, look to them. But then that doll, and then the fact that they use human hair on that doll, that's next level. You didn't have to use human hair. That was doing too much, right? You could just use fake hair. It's a fake doll, but the people who made it used human hair. And for me, that kind of moves into voodoo in things of that nature. Like did they put a spell on the doll too at the same, like I would need to know more about that doll before I kept it in my house for sure.
Yeah. Certain religions that's considered, devil work or demonic work or stuff like that. Like, not judging or anything, but that's if you're Catholicism, if you're involved in that, that's because they don't believe in mediumship. They believe in like visions and like having divine messages and stuff like that. But mediumship is considered basically you're talking to the devil. Like that's kind of that's Catholicism. But we're in a different time now. I think we're stepping. This is a time we're about to step outside of religions and about to make our own. A new religion's about to, or old religion's about to come back, I should say, or however you want to look at it. But
with that being
who knows,
said,
man?
Yeah, they did. I mean, obviously they got the dolls from someone else, so they didn't put the hair on the dolls, so they're just collecting some creepy stuff. Which, if you've looked at Zach Baggins, you know who Zach Baggins is.
What'd you call me?
Exactly. No, this dude is, and I don't know, much about him outside of what I just saw him on TV one time, and I know he has the same sort of thing. There's people that have these collections of supposedly haunted items, so like a chair from a haunted house, things that spirits tend to be connected to, and then they'll have them in this museum. I think he has his in Vegas, and you can go there to his museum and do a tour, which I might do. I might do that because I'm in Vegas all the time, and just to see kind of what he has. But I think he has the Annabelle doll or something like. He has one of those real big items that the famous items out there. Not really sure. And Richard Minnick, thanks for the awesome support. Space Out Radio says Zach LOL. He's a drama queen being. I don't know. I've heard different things about Zach Baggins, and he's like one of the more popular names out there in this space as far as like curating and collecting these items. But he has he recreated, I want to say there's something called Hell House, I think. Have you heard of Hell House? Yeah, you got to look up Hell
like
House.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, it's Hell House. It's
house.
Yeah, I don't even think the house exists anymore. I think they ended up tearing it down. But there was a family that used to live there, and it was some creepy things that were happening, like current modern day. This is like in the last, I think, 15, 20 years, where it was all these activities and things that were taking place at this place. They made a movie behind it or a documentary if you type in Hell House. But I think he has like some of the items there in his museum from there. And he's like set up this exhibit where some of the stuff is at. And Paramarv is asking, is that the one he bought in Indiana? Yes. Yeah, I think it is in Indiana, or it was. I don't think that house is still up or standing anymore. I think it's an empty lot now. But I think he either has like part of the building in his museum, or he has something from that place in his museum. I think he took a room and reconstructed it. I think that's what he did. Not really sure, but something like that. But it's interesting though, because people who take on these haunted items, I'm just like, but you have to be in that space to really understand why you would do that. As we
Yeah,
got about 10 seconds to come back here.
I got a good story to share.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2.5. That means we're on the back half of the show, last 30 minutes, with Drew Banky and the After Hours wrap up, and then we'll get into some UFO and weird news to wrap up the show. Guys, if you're on social media, you're out there, consider giving us a like. X and Instagram, the Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Radio Show. We'd appreciate it. Also, if you missed any of the show, jump in the archives, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. So, Drew, back in the conversation here. So, we kind of got into some stuff about, we're kicking the idea about the veil, the what exists beyond the veil. And, just kind of kick some ideas around because we don't know. We don't have the answers. So, we do know, though, at the very least, that for whatever reason, it seems like right next to where we're at is a place where these spirits and these apparitions live, because we captured things like the shadow person I caught on film. People are catching apparitions at haunted places that I've seen pictures of. And so we know it's right there. And so I was sitting there thinking, because some people say, okay, these things get trapped in that realm and, they're unable to leave or they don't want to leave. And I was looking at it like, what if, because we're thinking there's that realm, and then next to that realm is wherever you go once you're gone. And I was sitting there thinking, like, what if that was all one place? What if they're kind of sticking close to shore? Like if you looked at a boat on the ocean, instead of going way out into the ocean, you're going to stay near the shore because it's what you're comfortable with. And that's the unknown out there. And is that what they're doing? Are they sticking close to shore? Which is why we're able to see them, so frequently in that next realm. And then do they at some point get the courage to kind of go out to sea? And then that's where they go into the universal energy field, if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely understand what you're saying, but we're all supposed to have, a guardian angel around us. A lot of different religions and spirituality, like teachings and Catholicism, um, Native American spirituality, Hinduism, Buddhism. They all talk about basically, you have at least one guardian, whatever you call it, whether it be a guardian angel or whatever. But there's a spirit guiding you. There's another spirit outside of you. Like you have your own spirit space and your physical space, but there's a guardian, what most would consider a guardian, at least one that's with each and every one of us. So here in this conversation, there's two, plus everyone that's listening right now, and everyone that will listen. And it's with this one conversation, every interaction, that has two beings interacting in it. There's also the spiritual beings that are on the outside, whether you call it your higher self or guardian angel or whatever. And a lot of us have ancestors with us, depending on what we're talking about, what's going on in that moment. We have ancestors that step in to moderate or to, help out that situation in each and every occurrence. So there's times when we might have thousands around us. There's times when there's not much going on and there's not enough happening and they're off doing, handling other things. But it's a constant thing. I think, what I talk about over and over again, like the fear of death we never stop. So we're going to be wearing those shoes one day. We're going to be on the other side and watching some of our loved ones, our children, grandchildren, so on and so forth down the road, and we're going to be on the other side watching. And I say those in quotes. We're going to be on the other side watching and interacting and trying to move the needle forward for our future selves.
And I'm also looked at it like as far as paranormal research goes, and then maybe really just most of the things that we're trying to figure out with the phenomena in life, the keys to life, the answer to this, the answer to that, that maybe we just don't ever find all the answers in living life, and we don't get the final answers till we get over there to the other side. You know what I mean?
I believe that too. We're not meant. It's Dolores Cannon talks about it when in a lot of her interviews, if you go back and look at them, she's passed on years ago, but in her interviews she talks about mind, this is mind candy or soul candy. It's not, you're not meant to understand it all, but just understanding a little bit of it, or just experiencing it to where it's part of your truth. That's any part of it, just a part of it, that we never die. And if we can just experience that in one lifetime, going from fearing death, and thinking that I'm going to turn into just soil one day, and that's it. I'm going to eventually compost back into soil and go back into the ether that way. And just in one lifetime, if that's all I accomplish, is losing that burden of the fear of death, then I've accomplished so much, and I've accomplished way more than that, but I've transformed that in one lifetime. And I think that's a big thing to get to the understanding of. Thank God for the the near death and the ceremonies and things like that. It's all culminated. Every one of those things is culminated into this different understanding. But I got a real cool ghost story. I don't want to miss this opportunity to tell this because it come up.
Yeah,
I used to help out this guy. His name was Art McConville. He was native in a tribe. Forgot the name of the tribe, but it was up in the Washington, Oregon area, like the Pacific Northwest area. And so he prayed to the sun every morning, like the sunrise, sunset. And he was in the Everglades back in like 2017 or so, I think. Yeah, probably late 2016, 2017 time frame, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at a prayer camp that the Miccosukee Seminole tribe was going on, and I've talked about it before briefly here and there. This is the one where I had the sacred fire. I had a Bigfoot experience by the sacred fire. I had an experience with a hawk by the sacred fire, all this, that. I was also working with him, not as an apprentice, but just kind of, he wanted to show me some things. He got messages that he needed to show me a few things that he knew. And there happened to be a point where the owner of this land basically said that there was some entities or something happening on the land, and Art was kind of a Native American Ghostbuster. He's passed on now, and he was a great man. Very, if you was ever around him, he was a veteran too, Marine veteran, served in Vietnam, and he was kind of like this Ghostbuster type of person. He would go in and remove or guide the spirits out of these areas and give them a way to go back into the ether. Spirits that were stuck, as he explained it. But he was trying to get this spirit out of this area, and it was in a tent, and I don't know if it was connected to the tent or the land itself or whatever. It was an old military tent, anyways, there was something going on in there where it kept making noise, and this was day and night. It would tap on this metal can, and that was inside this tent. So finally, like, we went in there. He's like, "Come on, I need your help." And so I was burning sage, and that was like protecting us as we were going in there. But he went back in the corner and did something, and I seen like the predator, like on the predator where you see like the background kind of change, it just like distorted reality, I guess. I saw something like that move, and then I felt something hit me and knock me to the ground and knock me about 2 or 3 feet back. And he said it took off, and Art said he saw it took off and then jump out and then kind of be released. But it didn't knock me down. He explained it later, and it made sense. It didn't knock me down because it was trying to hurt me. It finally got released, and I was kind of in the path of its exit. But I was knocked down by invisible force, and it knocked me back 2 or 3 feet. And that happened to me. Like, everything else can be, you can look at how you want, but long story short, I was knocked down by invisible force, and that was, I didn't think about it until this interview today, but
That's bananas. That sounds, I mean, that what you talk about, like that predator effect, usually people mention that when they talk about something being cloaked, so that essentially could have been what that was, or maybe spirits can appear that way as well. But it would, if it physically did something to you, then I don't know. What do you think it was, if you had to guess? Think it was something physical, living, maybe, or
no, I think it
more
was
spiritual?
some type of energetic. The area where it was at, and it was in Everglades, southwest Florida in the Everglades, and Big Cypress National Preserve, to be more precise. But the specific area, to get any more specific, has a long history of Native American ceremony, Native American area and stuff like that. And also the family that owned the area where we're at was like 4 or 5 generations deep. And so there's a lot of history in that area, and a lot of history of medicine people hiding stuff in trees going back thousands of years. So I don't know what it was. All I know is I got knocked on my ass, man, and it knocked me back 2 or 3 feet. Like, seriously, it knocked me not only knocked me down, but it knocked me back. And I didn't feel anything. Like, I couldn't tell if there was hair on it, or anything like that. But it was, I don't know, basically I don't know how to explain it, but I just got knocked down by something,
Yeah. I mean, what can you say, right? What can you say? Like, if you got knocked down by something and you don't know what it was, it's yeah. I mean, you'll probably be thinking about that, I'm sure, for the rest of your life, and trying to figure out what that was, unless you see it again, which I hope you don't, really, because it didn't sound friendly if it knocked you down. So
Yeah.
what's the intent? What was it? That's the big question.
Well, like I said, it was headed from where we're at. It was headed towards the sacred fire area. We had a sacred fire that was burning, and it burned for over 3 months, and that flame never went out for 3 months. So the way it was explained to me by Art, it was a trap spirit, a trap soul that he released, and I was just in between basically it and the sacred fire area, which that's the direction it went to. I don't think it had a malicious intent. I just think I was in the way, like, really.
Okay, well, I mean, what do you do with that, right? At the end of the day, what do you do with that?
I
With
don't
that
know.
be-
I've never had any. I never had any inclination to carry on Art's work in that in that way. But yeah, he was an interesting dude. He was just an interesting dude, and shots go out to him. And I got a coffee mug that I still use, all the time. That every time I use it, that I think about is one of the last times I've seen him. I stopped by his house in Oregon and see him, and then he passed away before I see him again. But he gave me that coffee cup last time I saw him. He was amazing person.
Wow. Awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff, dude. And a real awesome way to end the after hours wrap up, Drew Banky, man. I do appreciate everything you do when you come on here and share your perspective and talk with me about what we do on this show, man, which is moving the needle. So appreciate you, buddy. We're gonna go ahead and get into the news, and you can stick around if you want. It's all good.
Yeah, much love to everybody. I'm gonna get off here. This time change. I'm tired.
Right.
Much love to everybody, and we'll see you next weekend.
All right, Drew Banky, the man, the myth, the legend, Drew Banky. Have a good rest of your night, man. Take care.
You too.
Yes, sir. All right, Drew Banky with that was wrap up, guys. Been a great show. We're gonna go ahead and see if we can get into at least one news story. Let's check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. But I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news of the week. Had a couple stories here. See if we can get through them both. I doubt at least one. We'll start with NASA could find tiny aliens hidden under Mars' surface. As scientists says, we should be looking there. And I kind of agree with that. We definitely need to crack the surface because there's probably things beneath there, whether they're dead or living. I think we'll probably see something. So it's one place we should be looking, according to one NASA scientist. A new NASA study hints that alien life may be closer to home than we thought. For decades, Mars has been the subject of scientific study when it comes to finding extraterrestrials. It's also been the focus for many in Hollywood, with countless TV shows and films produced hypothesizing the existence of other life forms on the planet closest to Earth. Putting Mars attacks and Pierce Brosnan's head on a dog's body aside, it seems like we're heading back in a direction where little green men could be a real thing. The big difference in reality is that they are likely not going to be green and will in fact be very, very small. A new study by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at JPL at NASA has looked into whether we should be once again actively investigating if there is life on Mars. And according to the paper's lead author, Aditya Kohler, the answer is 100% yes, just not on its surface. He says, if we're trying to find life anywhere in the universe today, Martian ice exposures are probably one of the most accessible places we should be looking. Mars has for some time known to be home to water, and OTs believed that once have been full of life. On the planet, it manifests itself into ice, of which there are two kinds, frozen water and frozen carbon dioxide. For their paper published in Nature Communications, Earth and Environment, Color and colleagues looked at water ice, large amounts of which formed from snow mixed with dust that fell on the surface during a series of Martian ice ages in the past million years. The ancient snow has since solidified into ice, still peppered with specks of dust that is dark in color and can absorb more sunlight. The theory here is that this could potentially warm up the ice, causing it to melt up to a few feet below the surface. From that, ancient life in the form of microbes could be surviving and maybe even thriving under the frozen water ice on Mars' surface, where photosynthesis could be happening. Pools of water, similar to those that could be on Mars, exist on Earth and are full of life, from fungi to algae and microscopic cyanobacteria. The concept of whether ice can actually melt on the Martian surface remains up for debate due to a terrible thin and dry atmosphere that is not like Earth's. But critically, the atmospheric effects that make melting difficult on the Martian surface wouldn't apply below the surface of a dusty snowpack or glacier. Co-author Phil Christensen of Arizona State University in Tempe said that ice melting from within is a common phenomenon on Earth. He said dense snow and ice can melt from the inside out, letting in sunlight that warms it like a greenhouse, rather than melting from the top down. The team now hopes to recreate the dusty ice from Mars in a lab to study it under similar conditions to what you would find up on the red planet. So, with that being said, ice on Mars containing life makes a lot of sense. Mars being a planet that was likely full of life like Earth, like we think it was. I think if we start digging there, I mean, obviously they haven't brought back any samples because I'm sure some of these samples that they've taken probably already show this and have examples of life in them. I would almost bet on that, but we're not going to see any of those samples back here. I think for about 8 years or something like that, somewhere close to 8 years. But here's my theory, and I don't know what people think about this, but based on the fact that it's possible that we came from Mars. It's possible, right? Because we don't seem to fit into this planet. And that planet was Earth like and had oceans and the same things we have here. You would figure that if we lived there at some point in time, or there was life in any substantial form, like larger form, that once we got there, once we had the first person there that was able to dig down into the dirt, I'm thinking that they find fossils of either human beings. And I hope that I'm alive to see the day that we actually start digging there, if they will tell us, because they may not. They may not tell us that they found human skeletons on Mars. But I think that the person who digs, the first person to dig, is going to find something along those lines, some sort of evidence of life in humanoid form, or at least animal form, something larger than a microbe. But I guess we'll have to wait and find out and see, right? So, with that being said, I definitely just want to thank our guests for tonight, Ross Allison and June Nixon, for talking paranormal with us tonight. Also, Steve Stockton with the Missing Person Mysteries, Tales Untold, and then Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. Awesome stuff. I want to thank you guys, and I also want to thank the guy you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Dog, the guy rocking us out each and every weekend as he reminds us to never say never again, because yes, the phenomena is real, as we've shown many times, and anything and everything is possible because of that, right? So if you love tonight's show, make sure you show some love. Hit the like button, throw your horns up. Also, we want to thank our viewers online and listeners on terrestrial radio and digital platforms, when and wherever in the world you may be listening from. We appreciate you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, you ask, guys? We own the night. Remember, this show is copyrighted SOR Media Ventures Limited and Spaced Out Radio. It's been a pleasure serving you once again as your host. I'm Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, don't worry. This is not a goodbye nor farewell. However, as we go off air for the night, you can best believe that we'll be back and doing this again. Much love to you guys out there. See you next time. Take care. right. That was an awesome show, guys. I really appreciate everyone who came in tonight and supported the show. Thank you, T-Bone, for the awesome super chat. Cosmic Joe Chronicles, thank you as well. Richard Minnick, thank you as well. We do appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. And guess what, guys? We are getting ready to get up out of here. The weekend is over. Let's get into this week. Want everybody out there to have a fantastic week. And I will see you all soon. You guys take care. Later.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. For your love with the cold.